I never expected a dam to change my life. For years, I owned a modest piece of land at the edge of our valley, unremarkable on the surface and easy to overlook on a map. But sitting on that property was a dam that quietly regulated water flow for the entire surrounding community. It never made headlines. Nobody stopped to admire it. Yet season after season, I maintained it because I understood something most people didn't. When infrastructure fails, everyone pays the price. I kept detailed inspection logs. I hired certified engineers. I followed every recommended protocol. To me, it wasn't just property maintenance. It was a responsibility to my neighbors, whether they realized it or not. Then a new HOA board took over and everything changed. One afternoon, I received a certified letter demanding thousands of dollars in HOA fees. According to the notice, my dam property was now subject to annual assessments because it supposedly benefited from community services. My first reaction wasn't anger. It was confusion. My land had never appeared in any HOA governing documents. I had never signed an agreement placing it under HOA jurisdiction. For years, nobody had suggested otherwise. The new board president, Karen Whitmore, had already developed a reputation throughout the neighborhood. Residents regularly complained about aggressive enforcement, selective interpretation of rules, and decisions that seemed to create more tension than solutions. Still, I chose not to react emotionally. Instead, I gathered every document I could find: property deeds, survey maps, county records, HOA bylaws. I reviewed them one by one. The result was exactly what I expected. The HOA had absolutely no authority over my property. The boundaries were clearly documented and legally established. Confident that the issue could be resolved through facts, I attended the next HOA meeting. I organized my evidence carefully and presented everything in a calm and professional manner. Karen dismissed every document. She insisted the board had authority, warned that consequences would follow if I refused to pay, and quickly moved on to the next agenda item. The silence that filled the room told me something important. This wasn't really about fees anymore. It was about control. Concerned by the direction things were heading, I hired independent structural engineers to conduct a full assessment of the dam. Their findings confirmed that the structure remained safe and operational. However, they emphasized that regular inspections and unrestricted access were essential, especially during periods of heavy rainfall. In simple terms, the dam needed continuous monitoring, and anything that interfered with that process created unnecessary risk. Unfortunately, the HOA didn't seem interested in those warnings. Instead of cooperating, the board approved measures that complicated access to property. Routine maintenance suddenly became more difficult than it had ever been before. At that point, I hired a property attorney to examine the situation from a legal perspective. The review confirmed that the HOA had no jurisdiction over the dam. More surprisingly, it revealed that several recent board actions appear to stretch beyond the authority granted by the HOA's own governing documents. While legal discussions continued, another challenge was developing. Meteorologists began predicting one of the wettest seasons our region had experienced in years. Large storm systems were forming, and water management agencies were monitoring conditions closely. The timing couldn't have been worse. As rainfall increased, reservoir levels began climbing. Streams that normally remain calm were carrying significantly more water than usual. Local emergency management officials organized coordination meetings with engineers and first responders to prepare for every possible scenario. That wasn't panic. It was professionalism. Infrastructure safety depends on preparation before a crisis arrives, not after. Every day, I monitored water levels. Engineers reviewed measurements and inspection reports. We followed established procedures and remained focused on maintaining safety. Yet the unnecessary obstacles created by the HOA continued slowing processes that should have remained straightforward. Meanwhile, Karen reassured residents that everything was under control. Some homeowners accepted those assurances. Others started asking questions. As more information became public, local news outlets began reporting on the dispute. Community discussions expanded rapidly. Residents who had never attended HOA meetings suddenly wanted to know what was happening. People weren't interested in drama. They wanted facts. Fortunately, the engineers, emergency personnel, and local officials performed exceptionally well throughout the storms. Monitoring systems worked. Communication remained consistent. Safety protocols were followed carefully. Most importantly, the community remained safe. When the weather finally improved, everyone felt relieved. But relief quickly turned into reflection. Many residents wanted answers about how the situation had reached that point in the first place. A public town hall meeting was scheduled. Homeowners, local officials, engineers, attorneys, and HOA representatives filled the room. I presented years of maintenance records, engineering reports, inspection logs, and correspondence. Independent experts explained why infrastructure decisions require technical expertise and why restricting access to critical systems creates unnecessary complications. For many residents, it was the first time they had seen the complete picture. The conversation that followed remained respectful and productive. Nobody shouted. Nobody attacked anyone personally. Instead, residents asked reasonable questions about transparency, accountability, communication, and decision-making. Those conversations continued long after the meeting ended. Over the following weeks, community members became increasingly engaged. Neighbors attended meetings, reviewed records, and discussed ways to improve oversight moving forward. Eventually, residents organized a formal vote regarding HOA leadership. Participation reached levels the neighborhood had never seen before. When the results were announced, it became clear that homeowners wanted a different direction. New leadership stepped forward with a simple goal: rebuild trust. Engineers, attorneys, board members, and residents began working together instead of opposing one another. Maintenance plans were updated. Communication procedures were improved. Access requirements were formalized and documented properly. For the first time in months, everyone seemed focused on solutions. The dam continued operating safely. Inspection schedules remained on track. Long-term planning became a priority rather than an afterthought. Slowly but steadily, the neighborhood returned to normal. Looking back, I realized the dispute had never really been about HOA fees. It was about what happens when authority is treated as a substitute for expertise. The dam didn't care about politics. The weather didn't care about opinions. Water doesn't stop to ask who won an argument before following the laws of nature. What protected this community wasn't luck. It was preparation. It was documentation. It was qualified professionals doing their jobs. Most importantly, it was a community willing to pay attention, ask questions, and demand accountability when something didn't seem right. Authority without accountability is just a title. Real progress comes from facts, expertise, communication, and cooperation. In the end, the community learned those lessons without experiencing the worst possible outcome. The storms passed, the infrastructure held, and the neighborhood emerged stronger than before. And for me, that old dam became a reminder that the most important responsibilities are often the ones nobody notices until they're tested.